Hey, Kevin, we got you.
You see me?
Oh yeah, Chris is working everything up, getting you on the screen there. How you doing
There we
tonight,
go.
man?
Doing good.
How's quarantining going right now?
It is not good up here because they shut us down to using motorized boats.
Yeah,
We're not happy about it.
yeah. I've seen Mark Zona post a few things. I've seen several guys that we follow from that area posting it, and um, it's crazy, man. It's crazy that something that is so self distancing you can't even get out there and do.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that particular order. I mean, we didn't shut down fishing; they just shut down the use of boats. Motorized boats. I mean, even electric. So, but you can use a kayak, a sailboat, a rowboat, a canoe. And it's just is what it is. We're working hard on it though. The MUCC, which is the state's largest conservation organization, they're they're fighting pretty hard for it too, for all of us. So we're trying to help them the best we can.
What? How long are they saying that could be for? I mean, as of right now.
It goes right now till her executive order. Our governor goes till May 30th, or I mean April 30th.
Oh man.
So we'll see. I mean, it's just like the stay-at-home order. I mean, but she can extend it
Yeah.
just as easy. And there's so much backlash because it's got a lot of things in it. There's no garden. You can't go to buy. All the garden centers are closed down. Home improvement stuff. You can't buy paint, wall covering, flooring, anything like that at all. So it's an interesting. It's probably the strictest of any state anywhere. And a lot of other states that were shut down are opening up now. Minnesota just reopened this weekend. South Carolina just opened up their state boat ramps again this past week. Mississippi did. So there's a lot of them being turned over. I mean, I know how to be smart and safe and social distance and be on the water. And before that order, the only way you could be on the water was with somebody from your own household or, with the same address, so I
Yeah.
could fish with my sons, but couldn't fish with a buddy, which is pretty restrictive as it is. And which I think, I was fine with. And I think everybody else was too. But this is a tough one here.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't imagine, especially being that that's what you do. You fish off a bass boat. I mean, anybody can still go fish at banks, like say fishing kayaks, but especially being up north, I don't know what your temperatures are right now. It's cool, so you don't want to be out on a boat. And for me,
Yeah,
anyways, I don't like being out
it's
on a kayak when it's cool.
yeah, it's definitely it's actually, I guess I had a buddy of mine text me from Lake St. Clair yesterday, and the fishing has been unbelievable. It's a great walleye run over there. A lot of guys fishing the Detroit River, but the smallmouth fishing's awesome. And there's a ton of guys going out in kayaks like crazy because it's the only thing you can do. But man, that is a place you don't want to get very far away. It can
Oh, I lost you a little bit, Kevin.
change water in the 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're done.
Yeah, yeah, you don't want to, and like say, like talking about the wind and all that. I mean, it don't take much for something to come across up there and change the whole day quick, fast, and in a hurry. So,
Oh yeah, yeah. So,
but yeah, let's talk a little bit before we get into our in-depth segment on springtime fishing. We wanted to cover the spawn and post spawn and some things that you're looking for because a lot of places across the country, except for where you guys are at, we're in the spawn and gearing to go into the pre-spawn side. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about the Bass Pro Tour. What have they said about possibly things kicking back off? I mean, does it look like it's done for the whole year, or
yeah, I hope that we're not shut down for the whole year for sure. I mean, it just depends until some of these restrictions are lifted for travel and that nobody can do anything. I know with our format, we could probably, from a social distancing standpoint, it's not going to be an issue. It's just all of guys all over the country having to travel and find places to stay on the road and things like that. So
yeah,
until things are open back up, pretty much nationally. I don't think any major tournament trips, are going to take that risk. There's too much liability involved.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what some people, I see a lot of guys doing these kayak series. It's all fishing your body of the water. They're just doing some live events, and which is pretty cool, kind of filling the void right now of no fishing, live fishing stuff out there, and
Yeah.
which I know I've caught myself now getting out doing a lot more fishing now with everything going on, because sometimes, if the weather's kind of crappy, I'm going to sit back and watch MLF, or I'm going to watch Bass Live, or whatever's on, so now I'm just like, I'm going fishing. I ain't got nothing to watch.
Yeah, they're so one of the things, like before we were shut down, we did a major league. Took over Major League Fishing's Facebook and did a live. I was up with my boys and did a live episode for them. And a lot of the other guys are doing that. So there is a ton of individuals, Bass Pro Tour anglers that are doing Instagram and Facebook lives on the Major League Fishing channel pretty much almost daily.
Yeah.
And they're fishing all over the country. So it is pretty different for sure to see things like this, but it's changed things. I've been doing a lot of Facebook lives and things from home, and that I'm actually going to do one tomorrow night at 8 Eastern from my shop. I think I've done 4 of them now in this during this quarantine. And now that I'm completely shut down from fishing, other than bank fishing, I've got a pond in my backyard, and you can go and fish any streams or anything like that. But I miss my boat.
Yeah.
a lot.
So, right now, with everything down, do you just kind of keep going over tackle, or you just, I imagine you've done that 100 times, so everything's right. So, but you still tinkering with stuff what's going on?
Yeah, I've been, I think all of us, we've done a lot of organization. I've done, a lot of projects and things like that around the house, clean things out. I'm pretty organized and ready to go. When I came home, and I realized that it was going to be a while, so I basically unpacked all my gear and got it all set for, to be able to repack when we do. So, our schedule's definitely going to change. I'm sure we'll be fishing different lakes than we had before, and that. So we'll have to see. But I'm ready to go when we do get back.
Now, if this thing goes in, I know a lot of you guys, y'all used to fishing in cool weather. Would you like it to see go through into the winter? Once you have to get these events, because it work out for a lot of guys. You know what I mean? It'd be pretty cool to see, because most events don't go that late. Most of the tour level. So.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not sure what'll happen, but I think just like every other sport, when it does happen, it's going to go gangbusters. For sure. With a lot of things, I know I've got some NASCAR buddies, and they, NASCAR's asked, they're really committed to still getting in all 36 races somehow. They're going to do some back to back and maybe midweek and things like that. So, but again, how do you know until you know when you can go back?
Yeah.
And it's going to be strange to, watch a baseball game or a race with no fans there, so yeah. Just on television. So, but in reality, all of our cup events that we do for Major League Fishing, that's kind of how it is too. It's like a live, even though they're taped, it's like it's live, because there's, they're blacked out, so nobody knows. So when we do go back, we can almost use that same format, use that same style, and that way we can, don't have to worry about, fans coming to an activation or anything like that, or to a weigh-in or anything.
Yeah, exactly. I got one more question for you. I was going through your Facebook and Facebook stalking, looking at the pictures and stuff like that and getting stuff ready. And you fished with so many different people, from NASCAR, from country singers to all that. Who is the, 2 questions actually, who is the favorite one you fished with so far? And that could be a loaded question. And then, is there anybody that you haven't fished with yet that you would love to get the opportunity to fish with?
I've I've got to fish with a lot of cool people over the years. I've fished with President Bush before, and again, I have a lot of friends that are, you know, professionals in other sports, and they just think what we do is pretty cool. So, and they love to fish. So many people love to do it. So, I can't think of anybody right off the top of my head that, hey, I'd really say I'd like to fish with. But everybody that I have, you can tell real quick who's passionate about it. Just like Luke Bryan, I fished with him for the first time earlier this year. And I mean, there's a guy he's ate up with it, just absolutely loves it. And, Martin Truex is the same way. Martin's a really legit fisherman. Him and Ryan Newman both, just about every race weekend, that if there's a place where they can fish, on their between testing and the things that they have to do, they're fishing around the track or finding a place to go. So, that's kind of the same way I am. If I wasn't fishing professionally, that's what I want to do. Just like right now, up until this no motorized boat order hit, it's just been a week, and it was a week ago Friday. I was fishing a lot, and it's different because I'm never home this time of year. We're always on the road traveling and things like that, and so I've got to fish with my boys a good bit there, and it's just I look forward to getting back to that, and it's kind of an idea, a glimpse into what it might be like when, someday when I'm not competing in tournaments anymore, or what I might be able to do.
Yeah, exactly. Chris, before we go in, do we got any questions? Have we had any questions come across? I know it's hard to see some of the live feed.
No questions.
No questions, right? I got you. Well, Kevin, let's kind of go into some in-depth fishing now and some technique-based stuff. Like I say, we're going into spawn, post-spawn time of the year. Now, when it comes up to this time where there's two different stages going on in the lake, what is the one you like to chase then? So if you got some fish that are spawn and post-spawn, what do you normally like to target?
Well, a lot of times you don't have the choice, based on the weather, the conditions and things like that. But, I always try to for a tournament anyways, because we're fishing, 4-day events, and you gotta be able to keep adapting with them. You want to fish a pattern if you can that's coming to you, or it's going to be getting better. That there's transitioning. So if you're targeting spawners and there's just not many of them up and there's not more coming, that's going away, and that's not what you want. So if you can find where those first ones start to head out to summer, especially on a lot of these lakes that have power generation, they go to that current as soon as they get done spawning, like Kentucky lakes like that. They leave the nest and they're on the ledges, and you can, really get into groups of big ones like that. And the first ones that get out there, they're easy to catch, and they're real biters. But it just depends on the conditions, you just have to, you kind of got to fish your strength and what you're comfortable with. But I really try to get a good feel for what stage the fish are in, and look or target the where the majority of them are going to be coming to, whether they're coming into spawn or if there's a lot of them garden fry or if post spawn and they're just kind of staging still around the spawn areas. So it's a great time to throw top water in that. So it's a tricky time of the year for sure in a lot of areas.
Yeah. So then you're kind of in that junk fishing stage in. You got every rod on the deck because you don't know if you pull up on a big bedding fish or what. But now you've been to a lot of different lakes. I know Smith Mountain Lake, you've had some success at down here in Virginia. Yeah. And during this time, I know early in the morning a lot of guys will target the shad spawn and then start targeting the bedding fish. Does the shad spawn, is it pretty heavy on most lakes around the country, or is there certain lakes where the shad spawn is better than other lakes at this time of year?
It just depends on the shad population, but it's something you definitely I look for sure. Some lakes I've been to that just have huge populations of shad. It's hard to, there's so many shad that it doesn't just concentrate the fish. You can find shad spawning everywhere and not get catch any bass. And then other places, it's just hard to find the shad spawn at all. But if you see a little bit of it, they go crazy. So it's important to, to follow whether it's blueback herring or thread fins. That both of them are a little bit different, but it's a key deal for sure. And it's an early thing. So, you got a narrow window and you just, you want to capitalize as quick as you can, so I'm typically targeting, boat docks, floating docks, or, riprap is good, clay banks, overhanging, sometimes they spawn on, trees or grass, but it's usually around something like that. But boat docks are a real common thing to look for. So the best way to find it, I think, to really find those shad is just throw a double willow spinnerbait. I mean, when you throw that, you'll see the shad, you'll feel them hitting the blades, and you can see them there. If you see that going on, someplace the bass are going to be eating them.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of my favorite baits. Like I said, when the shad spawn's going on early in the morning, before that sun gets up good and bright, But Chris, you say we got a question come in?
Yeah, we got two questions. First question is, does he throw a topwater at all during the spawn?
Absolutely. One of my favorite baits to fish is a KVD splash, the small junior size. It's a finesse popper, and if you can't see the bass actually bedding, if you're in a place where they're just, it's the water's a little bit too stained, or maybe they're a little bit deeper but there's, shallow cover or flats. Gosh, that's just it's a dynamite bait around that time through the, for fish that are on beds, that are coming up, that are just done, if they're garden fry. It's my go-to this time of year. It's probably at the tail end, not when the spawn first starts, not when the first ones come up, but when you get pretty well along into the spawn and start into the post spawn, it's my number one top water for sure.
Is there a magic water temperature for you on that? Like, 66, 67, like when you say, I'm going to start picking this thing up. I mean, is there a certain...
No, water temperature is way overrated, in my opinion. It's more about these seasonal transitions and changes happen a lot more based on the length of day, the daylight, so it's a daylight, a photo period type thing, and it's moon phase that can really, peak these things. So, you'll see this last full moon we had in April. I mean, it's a big prime time, huge wave of spawn all through the south, for that. And in the deep south, it'll be shad spawn. So you'll see this next full moon will be a giant wave of shad spawn going on. And a lot of times the bluegills will start spawning then too. And that picks up a whole nother, period of bass fishing that can be really good. The bluegill spawn is something that's really important to follow too.
Yeah, for sure. Most definitely on that one. Chris, you said we got another question?
Yeah. Do you like to throw a bait with a lot of movement onto the bed, like a lizard, or one without much movement at all, like a beaver?
If you're sight fishing, it's crazy how every fish is its own individual. I have a mix of baits that I throw, but I do like creature baits. My favorite one actually is a Strike King game hog. So it's got multiple appendages and that, and I like the smaller. It comes in a Magnum and a Standard, and I like that smaller one. It's enough, but it does have enough movement and legs. A lizard is definitely a good choice. I know a lot of people like that, but I like that bait because it's got a little more bulky body, so I can put a bigger hook if I need to. If I'm fishing heavy cover, and I need to put a real strong hook in it if I need to, or you can even put it on a shaky head. So
yeah.
That's what I do, is just kind of mix up my shapes. I have a drop shot, a shaky head, a creature bait, and then baits like a rodent too, that don't have, and even sometimes a small little ocho, things like that. Like you say, sometimes they want something with less action, and sometimes it's the drop shot that's just sits there from. There's no two that are the same.
Yeah,
that's the crazy thing.
Yeah, bed fishing is crazy, and I've been taking my kids out fishing and teaching them, kind of letting them see the bass react to different baits. And bass are like humans, man. They have their own personality, and there's certain baits that really ticks them off. Some baits they just don't care about, So it's always good to have a rye of baits on the front deck or on your kayak or whatever when you're at this time of the year, for sure. Chris, you said we got 3 more questions coming in?
Yeah, Chris wants to know, does the bluegill spawn factor in?
It's a huge factor. It's something that I look for. One of the things that's really made it easy now, and it's just amazing to me, is I've got this 360 mega imaging on the front of the boat, and I mean I've only had it for this year, for this season, and it just already all the old bluegill beds that I've seen in a lot of the places that I've been that I didn't even realize, when it's one thing if you got a clear lake and you can actually see the beds to know where they're at. But most places, that's not the case, especially these bigger pods of them deeper. And what's awesome is, I mean, not only do you see the beds, but you can actually see the bluegills on the bed. So you can tell if it's an active, set of bluegill beds or not. And I've never seen any bluegill bed pod that doesn't have bass around it. They're always there. So, that the time of the year when the bluegill spawn, and they do for, a long period, they'll spawn for a lot of, up here too. I mean, over a period of a couple of months, you'll see bluegill spawn, and it's just, it's automatic when you get around those bluegill beds for sure.
Yeah. Let's wait till we get to the last 2. We're going to save a couple questions towards the end here.
Okay.
Because I want to go over to the last part of the post spawn, and it might answer some of these questions for people. I don't know.
Okay.
Kind of getting into the post spawn of things. You were talking about, like say in a tournament situation, you don't want to really chase those bedding fish as much as if you have post spawn fish out there already that you can probably get better limits. Because like say when you got a 4-day event, them fish ain't guaranteed to be there, and somebody else is going to pluck them. So what are some of your go-to baits besides the topwater now? Let's say we're starting to get more towards the deeper fish spectrum now, where they're out deep off of points or secondary points. What's your go-to baits there?
Yeah, I've made a lot of money, cranking. I mean, cranking is just, it's my favorite thing to do. It's because it's so efficient, for specific depths you can pick, a crankbait that'll cover whatever zone you're targeting at the time. Whether it's, if it's 10 foot, I'm going to have a series 5. If it's 15 foot, you can throw a 5XD. If it's, that 20 foot zone, you can throw a 6XD. If you're deeper than that, you can throw an 8 or a 10XD. So I love to crank just because it's just one of those times where you've got to, I like to look for subtle structure that, in these schools of fish that other people haven't found. And now with the Lake Master mapping, that Humminbird has in so many of these lakes, it's just, every ditch and creek channel mouth and things like that, these real obvious places just get a ton of pressure. So, I try to look for those subtler places, and you're looking for that one unbelievable school of fish that nobody's ever fished for, or nobody's ever found, and you can pull up there and catch bass after bass on every cast cranking, and then once that crankbait slows down, you can always throw a big worm or a football jig or a spoon or other baits, but to find them, that crankbait is the deal, because it not only do they bite it, but I can feel depth changes, I can feel bottom composition changes, different things with that plug. It's just my favorite tool to fish that, and that true tail end of the post spawn, early summer stage, when the fish start moving out. It's it's a transition. I mean, you can, a lot of times early, you find the fish, close to the spawning areas, just on the first, the first break line or the first drop off, first structural element close to, a big flat, and it can be unbelievable. And those fish are just, they just keep coming as they're leaving the spawning bed. So that's kind of what we talked about, finding a place where they're keeping coming to, and you can make a milk run. And a lot of times you can hit it and catch them and go back a couple hours later, and there's a whole new group there. That's when that's what you're looking for, is when they're coming to you like that.
Yeah. Now I know that's why I own about 100 sexy shad, square bills, deep divers, all that. You've made a lot of money off that color right there. Is that still like a main color? Or is there for you, or have you switched to more of a different color? I know it depends on the conditions as well, but What I'm getting at is also is like crawfish. Crawfish starting to kind of come into spectrum there. So, do you use anything like that as well in that color?
Yeah, it's usually, shad are the focal point typically in that period. So I'm using shad oriented colors, but it's really about the water clarity. Day in, day out, a sexy shad or a chartreuse sexy shad, if it's a little bit off colored or it's a little bit green. And then chartreuse blueback is another one that is just really, really good. If the water's clear, real clear, that's when you want some natural colors. You want some brim colors or maybe a crawfish pattern some more natural things like that. It just really depends on the lake. If it's a lake like Table Rock or Grand Lake a couple years ago, I won there. Kind of at the tail end of the spawn there, cranking a crawdad squarebill. But I mean, that lake is all rock and there's tons of crayfish there. So they really wanted that brown craw over throwing like a blackback chartreuse or, the typical squarebill colors you'd normally throw.
Yeah. Now, do you ever get to a point like I know swim baits are big too, or especially during a spawn, like people like throwing them shallow, but is that something another go-to bait for you as well when it comes up to fishing for those deeper fish?
Yeah, a big swim bait on a heavy head is, speed is critical for making these offshore fish a lot of times bite. So, having something that falls fast or that you can move erratically. So, yeah, I'll throw a lot of, like a 4.75 rage swimmer on dang 3/4 ounce head, so it's, or even 1 ounce in a lot of cases. So, if it's a real clear lake, I'll go to smaller sizes, but I use everything. The one thing about when that ledge fishing is the same deal, just like spawning fish. Once you find a school and if they get pressured, I'm going to have to use some of these other baits. I've got everything from, all the jigs and worms and crankbaits and big spinner bait, a swim bait, a drop shot, a Nico rig. You're going to throw everything in there once I've got them found. But the crankbait is the tool to find them first for me. To find where they're at. Once you know where they're sitting, you can always show them, the whole tackle box, there to if you have to catch them.
Most definitely, most definitely. Well, let's get the last couple questions here before we let you go, Kevin. I appreciate you, like I say, taking the time coming on with us tonight. But let's get a couple more questions, and I got one more question for you before we let you go, and then let's see what we got, though. What other questions we got in there, Chris?
Jillian wants to know if you could only have one bait to use in the spawn, what would it be?
I get asked that a lot, and it's a tough. Thank God I've got a whole tackle box full, and baits are just tools. So I think a lot of people have favorites. I used to. I love spinner baits. They're just a lot of fun. They're really efficient for a lot of different depth zones. But I would tell you that if I had just one bait that I had to do it all with, I'd probably pick a tube bait. They're just so versatile. I can fish it fast. I can fish it slow on the bottom. You can finesse it. You can flip it. They're just, it's just a really, really versatile bait. A lot of people would say a jig. And you could argue the same for that. You can do a lot of different things with it. You can swim it. You can, flip it. You can, fish it on a ledge. There's just a lot of different things. But fortunately, I don't have to just choose one. I got a boatload full, and that's how you got to look at lures. Is they're just tools, and I just try to pick them for conditions and all the variables that you got to take into place at the time, and a lot of it comes down to confidence. I have a lot of confidence in certain baits that I can make it work on days when other people can't, and vice versa. Other people can make things work when I can't.
Yeah. What else we got, Chris?
What's the best spawn lure, the KVD 1.5 or the chatterbait?
Boy, they're both really, really good. I catch a ton of fish on a thunder cricket in the spring. If you haven't thrown, there's a lot of bladed jigs out there, but that thunder cricket is really an awesome bait. And now they've got some new sizes. They've got a 5/8 and a 3/4. So
wow.
Because bladed jigs push so much water and they have a lot of lift, it's hard to fish them deeper. But these bigger sizes now just help keep that down. So I pretty much keep one tied on. Both of those are tied on really all the time. I've learned that they're just, baits that are mainstay baits that no matter what the conditions, the bass can't help but not bite them. I mean, I think they can get conditioned to certain baits, but a square bill and a bladed jig definitely, they just continue to catch fish.
Yeah, a bladed bait, man. That has been the biggest money winner for I know kayaking side and a lot of big events here lately. It's been a bladed bait, a bladed jig has been like a key factor on a lot of them here lately. It's a good bait.
They dominate. They definitely dominate through the pre-spawn period, but it's a good year. It's a good lure other times of the year too.
Yeah, for definitely. Chris, what other question we got?
Pre-fish technique: hooks or no hooks?
I pretty much fish with hooks. I do shake a lot of fish off, and I throw topwaters with the hooks bent over a lot. Just to get the bites. I'll throw that popper, or I'll cut the hooks on my frog or something like that. Because if you can see the blow up, you got a pretty good idea of what you're looking at as far as size. But with a crankbait or something like that, you really can't do that. I'm going to have to catch a few just to know what I've got. To know what size they are and what potential that spot might have. But so I kind of mix it up a little bit of both.
Yeah. Hey, do we got one more? Is that it, Chris?
Clay wants to know when his new series of Lose rods will be released if ICAST doesn't happen.
So ICAST is canceled. They're going to do I think they're talking about doing some virtual things and that, but our launch for them is still planned, for it. It was going to be ICAST. So we're really looking to launch them around in July. I'm fishing with them all right now. We're fast tracking them. This coronavirus has, it's kind of slowed the process down a little bit. So, but I know we're going to have certain ones in sooner than others, for sale. So it'll be kind of a moving target, but they are definitely launching, in July. I've got 24 models in the line, different rods. There's both spinning, regular, graphite bait casting, and then I've got a whole line of composite, crankbait and bladed jig rods too. So 24 of them total. So they're really nice, and they're going to sell for $99. So it's a really, when you put one in your hand and look at it compared to what's out there and how they feel and the actions of these, I've really worked on the actions. They're really impressive for that price.
Yeah, they I've looked at a lot of different rods and seeing Lose some of the stuff they've been coming out with, like their reels. They got some really nice reels. I've thrown Falcon for a long time. They're a big sponsor of our show, but like I say, I give credit where credit's due. There's a lot of nice rods out there, and Lose has really stepped up the game some with some nice rods. Especially got some in the great affordable prices too for people who's kind of just getting into it and all that. So, got one more question for you before we let you go. This comes from me. When this is all said and done, when Kevin Vandam says, you know what, I am going to hang it up, I'm going to hang your hat up, and I'm not going to fish tournaments no more. What is your plans after that? Hopefully you still got a while. Hopefully, you're still out there kicking it like Rick Clunn is right now, but what is your plans after everything? So you just going to take it easy and go fish and do family, or you got anything else you want to pursue?
Well, that's what I do. I'm still fishing, when we're on vacation as a family, we're fishing, so that's what I'll continue to do. I love teaching people how to catch more fish, and I love working on products and developing, baits and rods and things just like we're doing right now with Lose and, for these KVD rods and reels. And I've got a lot of new stuff coming. So I'm going to continue to keep doing what I'm doing. The tournament grind, it is tough. It's tough on your family. It's a lot of time on the road, and the schedule is the hardest thing, when you're just focused into, locked into I miss a lot of things because I've got a tournament, here, a lot of things with friends and family and that. So that would be nice to have a little more control over my schedule. But I love the competition. I think it motivates me for sure, and it keeps you sharp. I mean, competition drives everything in our industry. It's just like the world. I mean, cars wouldn't be very good if there wasn't a handful of manufacturers all competing against each other to make them better. I mean, just look at what the electronics, have what they've done in the last 5 years alone, and that's because you got companies like Humminbird and Lowrance and Garmin that are on the forefront of a lot of technologies, and they just keep pushing the envelope. And in the end, I mean, it gives people better tools. I am just blown away by again this 360 mega imaging. If you hadn't seen it, I mean, look at the Facebook Live that I did on the Major League Fishing. You can just, I mean, I just see these rock piles fire, jerk, the direction, the distance, and you just fire a cast over there, and we were just killing them. So, and you wouldn't do that if you didn't have that technology. So, and that's really across the board, whether it's lure design or boats or trolling motors now. I mean, look what the Ultrex did to trolling motors, that with spot lock and this electric steer, it changed the way people fish, and for the better. So, and it's pushed everybody else to try to develop similar technology.
Yeah, definitely. That's just like the trolling motor side of things. It's so many different. A lot of these companies are going to brushless motors now, or like say the spot lock deal was big, and you're seeing it pushing other companies into this, and the graphs, and especially on the graph side of things, I've always like, man, there's no way they can make anything better than this, and they do. And it's just crazy. Like, say, with the Garmin stuff, I got that on my kayak. And the live scope stuff is just phenomenal. It's actually like you're sight fishing all year long. You actually get caught up in it if you ain't careful, because they're there, but you can't get them to bite. But, yeah, the technology is phenomenal nowadays. And I just, like I say, I can't see it get any better, but I know it will. But
it always does, man. They just when you think that they can't make improvements, they do. It's awesome. That's what I love about it.
Yeah. It's the sport's always growing, and like I say, it just gets better and better every year. And the sport itself is getting popular and popular every year. It's crazy how many people fish now. It's awesome, and we love to see it. So, but Kevin, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on with us tonight. And like I said, I hope everything works out in Michigan so you can at least get your boat out to garage and hit the water, man.
Yeah. We're working hard at it for sure. So it's at some point you would think common sense is going to prevail. So that's what I keep hoping.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate it, Kevin. You have a good one, man. And hopefully your season gets kicked off here soon, and look forward to following you on the tour, man.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you, buddy. See you later.
Thank
Hey.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for the questions. For one, we had some really great questions that came in. Sorry if there was any more. I don't know if was there any more questions to come in, Chris. I know we were kind of tight with time with them, so we couldn't get to everything if there was.
Clay's was the last one was on the screen. So
I got you. What was his question? Was that the last one?
That was about the rods.
Oh, okay, I got you.